all. Welcome back to our second week in a row recording Speak Now. Consistency is key, and we are getting it. We are getting it to you. Fourth episode of the year, quadrupling our record, big time. The program is higher than it's ever been. We're doing great. I hope you guys are doing great. And Jonathan, Steve, how are you guys doing this week?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. The Steelers are back this week after a bye, so it's always exciting whenever they're playing. It's kind of lonesome without them. I didn't really watch a lot of football this past week just because it's just not as interesting for me. But I'm excited that they get to play. We'll see what I think of their outcome later in our picks, and I'm excited to see the Lions crush the Ravens this week because as a Steelers fan and kind of as a Lions fan, I'm gonna enjoy those things just twice as much.
Yeah, I'm super excited as well, especially about the Lions. I mean, I wear a Lions shirt. I go to the med center, get some labs done, and I got a 80-year-old guy asking me about where I got my shirt from. You just get conversation. Just people are just pumped up here about Lions football for sure. And yeah, big college football weekend. Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, even the Red Wings big acquisition, Alex DeBrincat, 6 goals in 4 games. I mean, it was just a lot of excitement around sports and just in general around this area.
For sure. I mean, it's great times. Big Lions game. Last week, I was reading a story about this guy. It was he bet on the Buccaneers Lions game. It was a big story. It's this guy named Rashid. I don't know if you guys saw the story at all. I was just reading about it. This guy named Rashid, he's in jail. Um, but he had a call coming up with his friend, one of like the calls between the glass, and he gave his buddy a 16 parlay. And he had a $10,000 bond out, and if this parlay hit, he'd get 13,000. Lo and behold, this 16 parlayer hits, and I was reading about it, and he got out of bond and had an extra $3,000 out of jail. So that was a nice pick me up story of the week. Rashid got out on bond with his sports betting money. None of us are sports bettors, but I don't know what he did. I should have read into that before I said props to Rashid. He probably committed a felony, but it's besides the point. Let's get back on the sports track.
Was that Rasheed Wallace?
Uh, no, it was not. It was a random Rashid.
I'm just
It,
kidding.
I wouldn't be shocked if Rashid Wallace was in jail, but that's besides the point. Rashid Wallace does not need to catch strays on the show here. I think college football. We mentioned college football. It's a Big Ten week here. Two of the biggest rivalries. I mean, for Michigan, it's their second biggest rival. Ohio State's the game. Like Michigan State's their biggest rival though, and then Penn State, Ohio State, the biggest game to date since Texas, Alabama earlier in the year. Big week of Big Ten football. What are your views on? We'll start with the Michigan State game first, the lesser of the two games. What are your guys' viewpoints on that game?
Yeah. So I didn't write any notes for the Michigan State game because I didn't feel like it was really necessary. Um, we know how this is going to go. It's big brother versus little brother here. Michigan State's not really going to be too competitive, I don't think. I think Michigan's pretty legit this year. I think their expectations should be to make it to the finals, and if not, like it's a letdown of a season. So I don't think this is going to be close. I think Michigan goes into East Lansing and just walks away with the Paul Bunyan Trophy again.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think there's more drama about the tunnel and different things that aren't even to do with the game really. So it's everybody's Michigan's season doesn't really start till they play Penn State, then Ohio State, hopefully leading into Big Ten championship and the playoffs. So I mean, this is just you're looking at least a 3 touchdown game. I mean, it would be more if it wasn't the rivalry and it was at East Lansing in my opinion. So I just think every phase of the game, Michigan's given up 6.7 points a game this year, number one in the nation. Michigan State has trouble moving the ball on offense. How's that going to play out? It's kind of obvious. And Michigan's just good at they have top touchdown rusher in the Big Ten. They got Roman Wilson, I believe, has 9 touchdowns. I mean, just across the board. with the improvement on defense. It's just, there's really not much more to say about it.
Well, I mean, with all Michigan State, they must have the best. They must have the best theater program in all of the Big Ten with all the theatrics they play. I mean, with Mel Tucker and they got Tom Izzo in basketball. They're just a bunch of clowns. Focus more on their all theatrics in the tunnel, the whole Mel Tucker situation, Mark D'Antonio before that. You never focus on the football playing with Michigan State. They just have something going on all the time. So I mean, I don't I like you said, not much to look at here. MSU's defense, on paper, you look at their rankings, okay. They haven't played anybody with a decent offense. Like they had Iowa beat them, but that's one of the biggest snooze fests you can watch in all college football. But like we said, it's 24-point spread. Michigan should win by at least 3 touchdowns. I think we got to move on to the bigger game though. I think
Hold
the
on.
game that has
Before you do that though, I'm gonna step in here and defend Mark D'Antonio because he owned Michigan when he was the coach. So
I
you
think
can't lump him in there because he owned Michigan.
you know every college team has their downturns. Brady Hoke was the coach then. Ever since Jim Harbaugh has arrived, it's
Yeah, he
been Big
was.
Brother once again.
Mark was
But
pretty
Brady,
successful for sure. I agree with Jonathan. You might not like the guy, but yeah, him and Izzo were very successful coaches. Yeah, Mel's definitely a clown. I'll agree with Jonathan
Yeah,
there.
yeah, Mel's a clown.
Yeah.
well, clearly we see where he's at now, sitting on his couch. But like I said, besides the point, Penn State, Ohio State. That's the big game this week. That's the crown jewel. Arguably the best game of the year, probably second to Texas, Alabama. That was a great game. But Penn State, Ohio State. This Penn State hasn't been able to overcome the hump of beating Ohio State and Michigan. James Franklin, ever since Saquon's left, it hasn't like everybody claims he's in this upper echelon of coaches, like outside the elite, but like very good coaches. And his records show, but he can't win these big time games the past 4 to 5 years. I wanna hear your thoughts on the Penn State Ohio State game because I don't really think Penn State has it in them, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, I actually agree with you. You're playing at the shoe. James Franklin's 1-8 against Ohio State. You got a really young team. I think next year is the year that Penn State gets over the hump against Ohio State. I just think with Marvin Harrison Jr. and I don't want to butcher the other receiver's name. I think it's as a BK, but just those two guys. McCord's a little bit questionable at quarterback, but I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink at them and really put a lot of pressure on. I think they're a top 5 rated defense, Penn State, but take that with a grain of salt with their schedule to date, that sort of thing. Just I think at the shoe and all those you got Ryan Days trying to really prove himself out there, acting a little crazy after the game and the press conferences, things like that. I just think next year is the year for Penn State, and I think you'll see Michigan and Penn State next year versus Michigan and Ohio State the past how many years, right? So yeah, I agree with you, Eli.
I think regardless, defense is going to dictate this game. I think it could go either way. I think really whoever wins the turnover battle is going to be the one that wins this game because both Ohio State, both Penn State have good defenses. I think the question is like, can Penn State's offense step up and make the plays necessary? I think I have Penn State winning this. I think their defense keeps them in this and ultimately gets enough turnovers. I think Chop Robinson's going to torment Kyle McCord. I think Kalen King and Johnny Dixon prove that they're legit corners. They might not shut down Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think it's going to be a thing where you're going to see like a pick or two from McCord, and I think it's going to be enough to secure. I think James Franklin actually does get over the hump in this game.
I will say my fear with Ohio State this year is the shoddy quarterback playing. The offensive line hasn't looked particular. They aren't helping McCord at all. They aren't giving him like last year. Stroud had all the time in the world in the pocket. This year, I'm not completely sold on their offensive line. They don't look as dominant as they have in past years. And then McCord has really he's had two good halves in the past three games. He had obviously, well, in competitive games, I should say. There's games where they're going against the bottom of the barrel teams, but against Maryland, they were trailing going into the half. And against Notre Dame, he had the drive to end and win the game against Notre Dame. So that's a statement. And that's why I have faith in McCord for this game. But two young quarterbacks, it's kind of tough to gauge this game. This is easily their biggest game for both of them. But I think the home advantage has Drew Aller struggling, like Jonathan mentioned. And then those were the two big games in college. Really, the two Big Ten games are the two notable ones. Um, Looking into college football, the last thing I kind of want to touch on is there any teams that you look at in college football as legit or frauds? I've seen a couple this year, pretty high in the rankings that I'm unsure on, but wanted to hear your guys' input on some of the other college football teams around the NCAA.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody outside Michigan, Ohio State, top SEC teams, you have to question, right? So, Florida State's had a couple close games. They're ranked very high. I think they're 4 or 5. You have Washington that's kind of done the same thing. You have the kind of the mess at the Pac-12, and they kind of beat each other up and then don't really prove it, when they get into big games. So, I mean, I think anybody outside of the traditional top 5 or 6, you kind of have to call them I guess, prove it. Maybe they're not a fraud, but that's just my, I guess, quick opinion on that without getting a little more data. But yeah, I would say Florida State is definitely a fraud at this point.
I'd say for a legit team, this isn't like traditional, like in what we think of legit, like they're not like a top team. But I want to give Notre Dame their flowers just because one, they beat Caleb Williams, and they've hung into a lot of close games and games that maybe they shouldn't be as close. So they might be not be like a legit team in the sense of being like a top five, like they're going to make the playoffs type of team, but they're at number 15. I think like they've proven that they definitely deserve to be like in like that bracket, and I think that they have been a really feisty team and a team where you can't go in each week and just expect to get a dub because you're a higher ranking. They'll definitely give you a fight.
Well, Notre Dame had a gauntlet of 4 games, and they came out 2-2. Because I agree with you. I had Notre Dame as a team listed like they have 2 losses, but they're easily the best 2-loss team in the nation. They have a legit squad. They shouldn't have even lost to Ohio State. They lost on the last play touchdown. I mean, you got to look at things like that. They nearly beat the number 3 team in the nation. So I definitely like the flowers for the Irish. I will say on the topic of like a fraud, I think it showed last week on the topic of Notre Dame. I think USC, they were bound to lose a game. They almost lost to Colorado. They almost lost to multiple teams. They get in shootouts. That's what the Pac-12 is. The defense is watching those games. Their defense is atrocious. I think the entire Pac-12. I couldn't note a good defense in the Pac-12. But I'm not completely sold on Caleb Williams yet. I know he's one of the best prospects we've seen in a long time. People are saying since Andrew Luck. And I don't disagree. I think he has extreme talent, but I was looking at PFF stats. He is under 30 graded against pressure this year. That might attribute to the offensive line, but I wouldn't say I'm completely sold on him. I don't know. I don't know how well he's going to translate in the NFL, especially if he goes to a team with a trash O line. He hasn't faced pressure well at all this year. So maybe this is a bit early to say it, but I'm voicing my concerns for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, he thinks he's going to get partial ownership of whoever drafts him. So
Yeah, that's absurd. I was talking to Jonathan about that yesterday. This guy thinks he can choose his team and take stake in a team. Not even Tom Brady's might not even get stake in the Raiders now. You think You think Caleb Williams can get steak in it? It's absurd.
Yeah, that you can't allow anything like that because it could take away from salary or different things. So obviously that's never going to happen. So yeah, that's crazy.
It's clown behavior.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to be concerned about how he's going to fare, especially against uh, when he's under pressure. Because if he goes to a team like Chicago, like is Chicago really going to be protecting him right off the bat? No, like especially not in a division where you have like the Lions and like expect like the Packers and the Vikings to get better. Like it's just, and then in the same conference as the Eagles, like it just I don't know. I think it's fair to have questions. Um, he's definitely dynamic. I think you could look at this as like he's a different player from Lamar Jackson, but obviously Lamar, uh, same draft class as Josh Allen. Josh Allen, Drake May, maybe kind of similar. I know Drake May's been compared to Big Ben. Josh Allen's compared to Big Ben. Um, and honestly, of the two, who would you rather have as your franchise quarterback right now? It's uh, Josh Allen. So I think Drake May might have like the body to stand up in the NFL better than Caleb Williams. But I mean, I don't want to take away from what Caleb Williams has also shown when he's because he could end up being a top five quarterback in this league. But yeah, I think it's fair to have questions this early in the season.
Well, right now, I mean, with how his college career is going, I'd almost compare him to Marcus Mariota, to be honest. I mean, obviously, Mariota didn't really pan out in the NFL. He had a good little run, but like Oregon made it to a national championship with Mariota. So I feel like Mariota is a solid comparison at the moment. To be honest, I feel like they both had a solid athleticism. Mariota probably has a little less of an arm. We're not giving Caleb Williams the credit on his arm with that comparison. His arm is probably it's kind of hard. His arm is a rocket. It's hard to discredit that, but maybe that's a stretch, but
I mean, there's three college football programs where I'm always going to be hesitant about the quarterback coming out of college, and that's Florida quarterbacks, that's Ohio State quarterbacks, and it's USC quarterbacks. Because like when you look at it, it's like I mean Ohio State, like who have they really produced at quarterback? Like CJ Stroud looks like he could be the best of the bunch, but look at all like the championships they won with all these guys. And it's like you have Terrell Pryor, JT Barrett, um, Cor- I can't even think of like
Cordell Jones.
yeah, thank you, Cardell Jones. It's like even like Justin Fields has been like okay. Like I know like the media wants to be super high on Justin Fields. Like he really hasn't done. Yeah, like it's overrated. They overrate the rushing quarterbacks, and it's ridiculous.
He's like 5-26 as a starter in the
Yeah,
NFL. Let's
Six and
well,
25.
oh, I did I lowballed him. I lowballed him.
yeah. You go to Florida, you got like Rex Grossman, Tim Tebow, and then what did they do in the NFL? Like I get Rex Grossman went to a Super Bowl, but come on, that was the Bears defense. And then USC, like Matt Leinart is like one of the first ones that will come to mind. Like absolute bust. Like no like disrespect to him, but like his NFL career didn't pan out. Then you have Carson Palmer, who had a successful career, but was it a career that when you look back, you're like he was worth the number one overall pick? Probably not. So I
I
don't know.
kind of
That's kind
see.
of my stance.
I think those were the three. Those are three great schools to mention. All three of them have very similar characteristics. It's a college team. It's a college system. It's kind of like how we talk about how Brady helped Belichick's system for so long. It's like these coaches like the quarterbacks benefit from a college system. Like the NFL and college football are completely different games. So it's how you adjust, and they never adjust.
Yeah, I mean Alabama is obviously becoming kind of the gold standard there. I mean, I think even Mac Jones would probably be pretty decent if he wasn't, well, basically with no weapons with New England. So yeah, I mean
Well,
that's the other side of the coin there.
well, they view Devontae Parker as a wide receiver one, so that's their first issue.
Well, they viewed him as an equal to Jacoby Myers, so that tells you what you need to
Oh,
know there.
yeah, that Jacoby Myers Juju whole thing that's the Patriots for you post Brady. But I think that gets us past college. I'd say. I think mentioning the Patriots, I think that should bring us in the NFL. I think both of our teams. There's been a couple speculations regarding trades. I think both. I think both all of us would prefer our teams potentially to acquire not even a major piece, but there's pieces available, especially with injuries with both teams. Steelers missing Cam Hayward, and then the Lions losing Emmanuel Mosley for the year, so pretty weak in the secondary. Um, so who are some people? Maybe we'll call it like a little trade deadline wish list. Who are some players, not exactly to our teams, but who do you want to see moved at this deadline? It's about just under 2 weeks away, so it's really getting close to where we'll see some moves happening within the next week.
Yeah. The first one on my list that I had was Derrick Henry. I think this just makes too much sense for him to get traded because they're not going to be competitive in that division. And he's on the last year of his deal. You might as well get something if it's like a mid-round pick for him. The place that I had him, I think there's several places where this trade makes sense that you could argue. The one that I landed on was Tampa Bay, which might sound a little surprising, but I think that division's wide open right now. They have struggled a little bit. They have struggled to run the ball consistently. Baker Mayfield has flashed here and there. I mean, they have two legit weapons at wide receiver, and their defense has been rock solid. So I think Derrick Henry definitely gives you a chance to go win that division. I think your defense keeps you competitive in most any game that you're in. Um, I thought about putting Buffalo there. I think that would be a huge stretch. Um, but I mean, James Cook is good, but if you could get Henry on a rental, just imagine how much that bolsters your running attack. I know something that you and I were talking about, Eli, earlier this week is like offensive philosophy and how much the Bills do throw the ball. But I mean, imagine like scaling that back and actually controlling the clock some more. I think that they would be a lot more successful of a team. But I think Derrick Henry gets moved. I think Bills, Buccaneers. I mean, you could throw out any our running back needy team that's in.
I'd say the Ravens.
Baltimore.
Yeah, I had the Ravens.
So actually, I had a different running back going to Baltimore. I had Saquon going to Baltimore. I think that he could fit with in the passing game and stuff like that, and give Lamar some more options, create more space. I thought Derrick Henry to Baltimore too. I don't disagree with that, but I mean, I think Saquon is a really intriguing option for them, and I think it adds a little bit more dimension because they have power backs in Baltimore. I think mixing it up a little bit and really just taking a gamble with him. Obviously, his health is huge there, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate that. It sounded like for me the Ravens makes the most sense for Derrick Henry. I think nobody fears the running back tandem of Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. Um, and I think they have Melvin Gordon here and there. I don't know if they keep him up, or if he's on the practice squad. But I think the tough thing with Henry this year, why we see a decline, and this probably has happened in past years, but I was looking at he's top five in percentage of stacked box and average defenders in the box. Because Tennessee is so predictable on offense right now. Like first and second down, I was watching the game against the Ravens, and they were so predictable. He got a couple runs going in the second half. Um, but I think with the Ravens and Lamar's running ability, that opened him up a lot more this year. And I'm sure you'd like to see him traded, Jonathan, so you can get your first round pick for Tyjae Spears.
Yes, please. Tyjae Spears RB1 for Tennessee.
Yeah, I guess pivoting a little bit. I mean, maybe to the wide receiver position. A couple guys out there: Marquise Brown, Hunter Renfrow, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. There's probably some others out there, but I really think a team like the Chargers or the Browns is going to kind of go all in on either Hollywood Brown or possibly one of the Denver guys to stretch the field. Those teams are just spending a lot of money, and they kind of need to win right now. So you had the injury to Mike Williams for the Chargers. I could see them definitely making a move. I just don't see that you're going to run with Josh Palmer as your number two the rest of the season. Cleveland, who really is there, you know, you had Nick Chubb go down. You're kind of turned into a passing team. I think Watson's back practicing. He was starting to look a little bit better before his injury. No one knows exactly when he's going to be completely healthy. But besides Amari Cooper, I think you really need to focus on the passing game with Cleveland. So I think they're ready to make a splash. So I guess at wide receiver, those are my thoughts. I don't know who's going to target who, but I think both of those teams will definitely make a move. And Hunter Renfrow is being severely underutilized at the Raiders. Josh McDaniels, just that guy just doesn't fit his style for whatever reason. He would think with Julian Edelman and guys like that in the past that he would, but you know, I guess you got Myers and Adams and Jacobs, and you got a young tight end and Mayer. Where does Renfrow actually fit? So those are my thoughts for wide receiver anyway.
I like the wide receiver route. I had a little different look at it though. I think I like one of the Denver guys. I like Cortland Sutton. I think he'll for sure get shipped. I mean, with how Jerry Judy's talking, who knows where he'll go? He's talking like he's a proven wide receiver recently. But I like Cortland Sutton to a team that I didn't hear you mention. I like Cortland Sutton to the Houston Texans personally, and I haven't. I think the Texans, Robert Woods is their slot guy right now. I kind of like Cortland Sutton getting traded there. I think they probably ask for a fourth. I think for Cortland Sutton, I don't think they'd trade much more. I think the Broncos would take any trade capital they could, based off of how they traded away picks, first rounders for Russ and Sean Payton. But I think Cortland Sutton, he already has 4 touchdowns this year, which is doubling what he had the past 2 years. I think Stroud's play this year, I think it really it kickstarts the Texans rebuild a little quicker. Their defense still needs a little bit of work, but I think getting an upgrade over Robert Woods in the slots to pair with Nico Collins and Tank Dell, I think that could really help CJ Stroud and give him more weapons. Because I think if they continue to give Stroud weapons, I think we could see the Texans battling the Jaguars for the division. Probably not this year, but next year for sure.
Yeah. I think that's good fit. I almost wonder if maybe Texans try to swing a move for a defensive guy too. I don't know. I think it's an interesting route that they could go because, yeah, do you want to start trading draft capital or do you really want to build this team in your image with D'Amico Ryans, who is in his first year, will be a second year come the off season. I think Marquise Brown gets traded too. I have him still. I know that the Chiefs just went from Mecole Hardman, but let's be honest. I don't think that that's enough. I think that they should go a little bit deeper. I think Brown is a step above Hardman, and I think he gives your offense even more like vertical like leverage in the passing game. Because the Chiefs' passing game has really looked not what it used to be. So I still think that the Chiefs should go out and get him because I think that they're not guaranteed to be going back to the Super Bowl with their current roster. And then I think Judy goes. I had Judy going to Buffalo. Just give Josh Allen some more weapons. I talk about teams that need to win now and win something, improve something now. I think Buffalo is one of those teams too. Like I don't think Sean McDermott's going anywhere, but I think like you got to be frustrated after year in and year out of either like meeting like the Bengals, meeting the Chiefs in the playoffs, and like it doesn't work out. Bengals don't look as good as they have in years past. Chiefs look vulnerable. Like I think this is the year for Buffalo to really load up on offense to give Josh Allen the weapons he needs, and then it frees up Stephon Diggs even more. And then my last trade scenario is I had Leonard Williams going to the Lions, boosting their defensive lineup.
I don't mind that. I will say, commenting on the Mecole Hardman Hollywood Brown comparison, he said a step above. I'd call him a staircase above, personally. I mean, Mecole Hardman, you always hear about this guy like in fantasy, like, oh, he's a boomer. He'll get you this big play. He never gets a big play. Like he has all this speed. Like he's kind of like the John Ross. You hear about his speed all the time, and then it never translates. But the Leonard Williams thing is interesting. I haven't seen that name. I know they signed him to an extension. He's kind of, um, from what I've heard, I think he's slightly underperformed it, but I think that's because of the emergence of Dexter Lawrence. We hear more about him. Um, But I will say, I think one of the Carolina guys going to Detroit as well. I think that's interesting between Dante Jackson and Brian Burns. Dante Jackson's had two bad games this year and three really good games. Um, he got lit up by DK Metcalf when they played, so he's given up 270 yards on the year. Half of that was to DK Metcalf. So I take those stats with a grain of salt. Everybody has a bad game. But I like Dante Jackson sliding into the CB2 role. And then Brian Burns, if Brad Holmes really wants to go all in. I think Brian Burns is an elite edge rusher. I think the Lions, they have a nice mix. They have Josh Paschal coming back this week and John Kaminsky as well. They're pretty steady, but I think Brian Burns, at least for a rental for the year, he could get you 8 sacks once you acquire him potentially. So I feel like the Lions are tough to gauge how explosive Holmes wants to go.
Yeah, I don't see Burns getting traded. He's kind of Carolina. I think they offered a bag for him last year, and Carolina didn't want to do it. So another guy for Carolina, C.J. Henderson Jr. I could see. There's Christian Fulton for the Titans. I mean, I really see the Lions adding in the secondary because that was kind of the angle they took in the offseason. And I feel like they have so many pieces on the defensive line that they're rotating in and out that despite injury, they're still generating, more pressure than almost anybody in the NFL. I believe they're the top rush defense. I mean, I think the front seven is just stout for the Lions. I think it's just the secondary that they need to keep adding depth to. I would say Alex Anzalone is playing at a Pro Bowl level right now. I know that sounds crazy, but man, watch the games. He's just crazy.
Oh, he's a stud
Um,
this year.
yeah, just other guys on offense, just maybe bit players that a Kansas City or Buffalo, like a Cordell Patterson could get traded. He's not getting utilized with Atlanta. Zach Moss playing less and less for the Colts. If they could fetch something for him, he could get traded. I just think there's some guys like that could go to a Kansas City or Buffalo or even the Eagles. The Eagles look a little bit vulnerable as well. I mean, they just signed Julio Jones the other day, so they're not done yet. If they sign Julio Jones, they're going to keep signing guys. They
I
want to
think a
win right
re
now.
I think a reunion with Zach Ertz could be possible for the Eagles. I
I've
could
heard
see.
Zach Ertz too. Yeah,
I've seen Zach Ertz. He just Trey McBride got majority of the snaps last game, which was intriguing because Ertz has played decent this year. So I think that the Cardinals are bound to just blow it up. They're playing too well. They're bound to blow it up and try and get back in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Although might stay in college since it's not one of his desired teams. So who knows on that one?
hey,
But
Kyler's coming back, so there you go.
take them up in fantasy.
Yeah,
Sleep sleeper
go for
sleeper pick
it.
sleeper pick for the 8 losses in a row for my squad.
Yeah, if you're drafting for a Madden tournament, you're good if you got Kyler.
Well, I'd say with that, anybody else have any other guys that you could see getting traded?
I don't think that this is going to happen anymore just because he came out and said that he wants to play for this team for the rest of his career, but anything can happen. It's a business after all. Uh, Patrick Surtain, I think, is one where it's like the price might be too steep for teams, but I mean, if Denver really wants to blow this up and uh, get some first round picks back, like he's a guy to move. Um, that being said, I really hope that the Steelers and Omar Khan go for him. So I think that defense would just be unbelievably like legendary with him on there. I don't think they will, but and I don't think he's actually going to end up getting traded because he's young and he's controllable. But yeah, Patrick Surtain, that'd be a blockbuster move to see him get moved somewhere.
Yeah, I think Chase Young would be another one. I just don't see Washington paying, four guys on their defensive line, and they're still giving up 30 points a game. So if you can get a high pick for Chase Young, I think the Commanders will do it in a heartbeat. So I mean, he could really maybe change a scenery, Steelers or whoever it is, whoever he would go to, he can make a huge difference. But I just doesn't seem like Commanders are going to do that.
I think the Jags could be a sleeper team on a pass rusher. I think we've seen that their defense is starting to improve. But I think if we're talking Chase Young, I think Jacksonville would be a location for him if we mention him. I think opposite to Trayvon Walker, try and develop. They have a good secondary. The pass rush just needs to develop a bit.
Yeah, Danielle Hunter could be another one to go there too, for sure. The Vikings, if they keep heading the way they're heading.
Oh, they're abysmal. They're done. They're that. Watch them go into Caleb Williams sweepstakes. It's one of his desired teams. If they tried to trade Kirk Cousins, try and get more draft capital, you could see the Vikings try and get that, but I don't really know about that either. Just a stretch.
Who doesn't want to throw to Jefferson, right? So yeah.
Well, if you want to keep Jefferson happy, the Vikings might have to consider something like that. If getting rid of Danielle Hunter, getting the draft capital.
Yeah, they'll keep Jefferson plenty happy. I'll guarantee that.
Not as important as Justin Jefferson, but Jordan Addison was his college teammate for a season too, so that could play a role. But yeah,
Connect the dots, right?
Exactly.
It's just it's tough to I think it's kind of tough to see a team that's first overall that doesn't have a QB. It's tough to see him giving up that first overall pick to get him. That's my only thing. Depends on what team ends up with the first overall pick. It's tough to seeing anyone give that up though.
Money's got to be on the Bears, right? Got Carolina's pick and their pick.
I think the Bears would trade it to the Vikings or not in division. No, I guess the rare in division trade was the Hawkinson, but
that's a whole different ball game. Yeah, but when you involve quarterbacks, you can make that trade. Not even in the same conference.
Yeah, that rarely slipped my mind. That was a hiccup. But I will say, if that's anybody else have any other, I feel like we scaled a lot of the rumors pretty well. Couple flyers in there.
Yeah, I just had the thought of, does a team that just recently drafted a quarterback, if they're in position to get Caleb Williams, do they pull Arizona and trade their top 10 QB for their number 1 overall pick? I don't know. Something to think about. We can talk about it on a later episode. But yeah, I think we need to take a break. We'll be right back. We got picks.
Weekly picks.
Looking back on our picks from last week, I went 7-7, got the Jets beating the Eagles, but overestimated Gardner Minshew. Eli's score, he went 7-7 as well, got the Jags and he scored close, but not the Bears.
All right, y'all. Welcome back from the small break here. Welcome back to Speak Now, episode 2 in a row here. We're in a groove and we aren't going to stop now. We have our weekly picks. During production, we'll put up Jonathan and I's record last week. I believe we were both around 500, so not a bad start. I should have looked into that more in depth before to see how I went, but based off that Chargers disappointment, I think that put me at 500 if I look correctly.
I'm just glad that I got the Jets versus the Eagles right.
I tell you what, you called that one. I like the spread on that, but when it comes to the Jets beating the Eagles, that baffled me. And my dad said the same thing. He had the Jets. He was like, take the Jets, but he didn't listen to me on the Browns, so we're even on that one. But I think that's besides the point. I think this week's slate of games is a bit easier. I thought last week was a bit tough. I didn't have too many upsets this week, but maybe that seemed to hurt me last week. I think the first game of the week here that we have would be the Raiders Bears. Obviously Thursday. Thursday's going on right now. We talked about it pre-production here. I had the Saints. Clearly, that's not working out for me. I didn't have faith in the Jags. Clearly, I should have. I think it's my vendetta against Lawrence, but that's besides the point. We're focusing on the Raiders Bears. For me, I got the Raiders even without Jimmy G. I'm backing Brian Hoyer this week. Brian Hoyer against Tyson Bagent, the game of the week. I think the Raiders have more talent in the skill positions, so I don't know. It's kind of just a throw it out there and hope you're right game. This two horrible teams. Um, but I'll take the Raiders in this one just because of Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I'll take the Raiders too. I'll take the Raiders 24-10. Aiden O'Connell may start, but you got Tyson Bagent, who I believe was undrafted. Kind of a feel good story there, but he's not going to feel too good when Max Crosby comes rolling in on him. So yeah, they'll struggle to score even 10 points in that game. Raiders are actually going to have a winning record after this game if they win, which should be 4-3, which is probably a shock to just about anybody. So
Better than the
yeah,
Chargers.
24-10 Raiders. Yep.
I'm going to differ on this one. I'm going to go Bears. I think that this game is going to be ugly, regardless. Not for like one team getting blown out. I think this is just going to be really crappy football being played. I'm going to go with Bears using their home field advantage to get to McConnell. If he starts, I have it 18-13, so it's a close game. It could go either way, but I'll pick the Bears to get a dub.
I don't think I gave my score, but I would go 28-10, favoring the Ravers. Next we got the Browns Colts. We're getting into a little bit more interesting games here. Browns off a big win. I think the Browns handle the Colts pretty easily. I don't think the Colts offensive line, they have these stalwarts, but I feel like they always seem to struggle as a collective unit. So I like especially if Watson comes back, I like the Browns winning. Not by a huge margin. I'd give them 24-10. I don't think the Browns, or I'm sorry, 24-13. The Browns don't really score a ton, but when you only give up as many points as they do, they don't need to score more than 20 sometimes.
I'm actually going to go with the upset here. You get the big high off the win last week. I think Watson kind of falls flat when he comes back and plays, and I think you got Minshew mania. You're at home inside. I think that kind of slows down Cleveland a little bit. I know that's odd to say playing inside in the turf, but Cleveland loves playing outside and getting dirty and nasty on defense and everything else. And I think it kind of takes the edge off of the Browns and they lose 17-16 after a big win last week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Steve on this one. If Deshaun plays, I think the Browns will probably win. But if PJ Walker's playing, I think the Colts are the ones that win this definitely. The Colts defense has actually been decently solid this year. It's not been like terrible. Obviously, it's kept them in certain games. I think Minshew will have a better game than he did last week against the Jags. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll have a great game, but I think it'll be enough. And Jonathan Taylor, just the more reps that he's getting, I think the better he'll start to look. The Browns defense has been really good this year, but the Browns as a team have just kind of been inconsistent. So I'm with Steve. I think they're coming off this high, this big upset, and I think they end up getting upset this week. So I have Colts winning this one, 21-20.
Interesting. I was the only one going on the Browns there. Then moving on. Honestly, probably the gimme of the week here. You got the Buffalo Bills against the New England Patriots. Bills didn't look great last week against a far lesser team than the Giants, but I have a hard time thinking Josh Allen's going to lose this game for the Bills. I think they'll get it rolling on offense again. I'd like the Bills here, 35-14. I think this is a game Mac Jones gets benched as well. I think it'll happen this week.
Yeah, I also like the Bills. I do think the Patriots will keep it close till half. You just have that whole divisional thing. Games get kind of weird, but just how Buffalo, I think, kind of steps their game up against certain teams. And I think just playing Belichick and everything, I think they'll just, even though it's at New England, I think 31-13, Bills win running away in the second half.
Yeah, I think the Bills win this one too. I have it 27-10.
Pretty not much to look into for this game.
Yeah, they get a rebound after a rough game against the Giants, I think here.
For sure. Then we got the next game here, another divisional matchup. We got the Commanders Giants. And this one was a really tough one for me. I think with how the Giants played last week, Daniel Jones' status in question. I liked Tyrod Taylor playing last week. I didn't mind how he played. Obviously, his whole goal line switching the play to a run at the end of the first half that cost them a lot, not getting any points. But I like the Commanders here again. I don't see the Giants replicating that defensive performance. Bobby Okereke played out of his mind. You heard his name every play. But I like the Commanders. I like how Sam Howell's playing, and I think their defense will bend, not break. I have the Commanders winning slightly, 24-20.
I've actually got the Giants in this one, 21-20. I think Dable is going to take advantage of Sam Howell. One of the last games I watched, the primetime game, Sam Howell's pocket presence is just terrible. So I think Dable is going to take advantage of that. You got Saquon back. I think they're finding a weapon in Wan'Dale Robinson. So I think they're getting a little more well-rounded on offense. If they could just kind of finish their drives, I think they can improve as the season goes on. They're still not going to finish more than 6 or 7 wins, but I think 21-20 Giants.
I have the Commanders on this one. I think the Giants' O-line lets them down in big ways this week, and the Commanders' front seven feasts. I have it 28-6. I don't have to be in close.
Next up, another divisional game. We have a lot of divisional games here. In the 1 o'clock slate, the Falcons Bucks. This is my first upset of the week. I like the Falcons in this game. I think the Bucks are major pretenders. I think their defense has overperformed thus far. They have good pieces, but I think overall as a unit, not convinced on them, as well as their offensive unit. Rashad White, mediocre really, his showing this year other than one game. So I like the Falcons. I like a Ritter bounce back game, as well as Bijan. Those two need a bounce back game. I like the Falcons here, low scoring affair. I'd give it 20-17.
I'm going to go with the Bucks here, 2016. I just Atlanta's strength is, they want to run the ball. I think Tampa Bay could just plug the middle. They did show that against the Lions, but the Lions and Falcons, it's just, that's a whole different level of team. So I think I think they'll use Mike Evans a little bit more and take advantage there. And just think 2016, it's going to be an ugly game, probably some turnovers. Just not a fun game to watch, but I'll take the Bucks 2016.
Yeah, one stat that I want to point out is that Ritter in the last 3 weeks has 5 interceptions. And the Bucks defense ranks 8th in the league in interceptions. So I do think there's going to be turnovers. I think the Bucks defense gets them the dub in this one. I think their defense is legit. I think it's kept them in games that they probably shouldn't be in. Which is why I wouldn't be surprised if they're a fringe playoff team later this year. So I have them winning 20-12. So yeah, low scoring game, but they win.
And then the big 1 o'clock game of the week, the Lions Ravens. Obviously for me, not hard for me to pick. Going homer pick. I think I will every week, to be honest. Don't think they're losing another game this year. Obviously, my prediction at the start of the year was 12-5. I think 13-4 is realistic now, but that's besides the point. I like the Lions here. This one's tough to gauge if it's going to be an offensive or defensive battle for me, but I do think the Lions continue the streak of 20-plus points. I give it 28-24 favoring the Lions.
I'm also going to take the Lions. I know, big shocker. I think this game's going to end. It's the whole Lions' fortune and how things are going this year. Justin Tucker is going to miss one at the end of the game. So yeah, 24-23. I think a little more offense than anyone else thinks. I think the Ravens will be able to move the ball. They have kind of some pieces that I think that will give the Lions trouble with Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. I think Branch will be a little bit rusty his first game back, so that'll hurt a little bit. But he'll also make big plays during the game. And I think the same thing with the Lions. They're going to expose some things in the Ravens secondary. I think they'll struggle to run, but kind of the same thing. They'll have a couple trick plays up their sleeve. They kind of kept those close to the vest against the Bucks last week, and I think they'll throw some things out there that kind of surprise everybody, especially the Ravens. 24-23 Detroit.
Yeah, I think this game ultimately comes down to Lamar versus Jared Goff, and I think it's going to be a quarterback battle. I think both teams will take away the run in this one. The Ravens have been pretty good against the pass. as a defense this year, but their passing game isn't the strongest. I think this is a lower scoring game than what we're used to with the Lions. I do think that they end up winning, though. They go into Baltimore and they get the dub. Again, I think they look like a top 3-5 team in the league this year. They're legit. But they win this one 21-16.
And then on to Jonathan's squad. Starting out the 4 o'clock slate, we have the Steelers Rams. This was probably my toughest one to pick. But I got the Steelers here. I'm not sold on the Rams personally. I think their defense, they have Aaron Donald himself, really helps their rush on defense. But I like the Rams offense, don't love their defense. I think Kenny Pickett has his first real big showing this year. If he keeps audibling out of Matt Canada's plays, he'll probably go for 300 yards. But I think it'll be Steelers beating the Rams 24-21.
Yeah, I got Steelers as well, 17-16. Rams are on their third running back. They got Zach Evans, Myles Gaskin, and Darrell Henderson as their running backs. That's going to make them really one-dimensional. And what is the Steelers defense like? A team that's one-dimensional. So I think they're going to take advantage of that. They'll pin their ears back, and Matt Stafford's going to be happy feet all day. We saw it in Detroit. Once the wheels fall off, he just starts throwing the ball to whoever will stick 2 hands up in the air. So, but at the same time, the Rams will definitely make some plays, and I think that'll be a really entertaining game to watch at SoFi. I agree with Eli. I think Pickett's going to have a nice game as well, especially with Deontay Johnson back. I think he'll hit the ground running and get probably 6 to 8 catches. So I like the Steelers, but it will be low scoring, saying all that, 17-16.
Wow. That's picking the Steelers. I feel like I need to reevaluate what I'm.
Hey, bye week too, man.
Yeah, I think the Steelers defense definitely gets to Stafford early in this one. It's what they do. Stafford's going to take some sacks. To your point, the Rams don't have much of a running game, and I don't think Zach Evans is it. Like, I don't think he's going to make much of a difference in that. Steelers will probably give up like one or 2 big rushes just because that's what they tend to do. They tend to get like a little too focused on one thing, and then they will give up a big chunk play in the run game here or there. But yeah, I think they're going to get to Stafford. I'm really interested to see how much Joey Porter Jr. plays in this game. I know his snap count's been increasing. I believe the graphic that I've seen floating around the internet right now is that his quarterback rating when targeted is 0. I think that's a little bit too out of context. Like, watching him play, he's looked good. I think he's a little grabby. I think he'll probably get flagged at some point. You can say the same on the other side of the ball with Pickens. Pickens has the tendency to push off a little bit. Surprising that really hasn't gotten flagged as much as it probably should have. But yeah, I think the defense keeps them in it early. But I think the Rams D sacks Pickett multiple times and picks him off at least once. I think Donald just comes through up the middle. Like, the Steelers' offensive line has really underperformed for the moves that they've made this year, and the Rams have got they have Aaron Donald obviously, and then Ahkello Witherspoon, the former Steeler, he could get the pick, the interception. He's had a really solid season so far, which is really frustrating that the Steelers are to go on a little bit of a tangent, a little bit of a rant, because they're really frustrating this year to watch. Is my 2 favorite sports teams in the entire world are both teams that have such a storied tradition and such a consistency of excellence, and just I could always bank on them to be good and to do things the right way. And for some reason, both of them at the same time in their history are deciding to give up on talented players so early. I'm talking about the St. Louis Cardinals, in case you don't know, with all the players that they've gotten rid of over the last couple of years, where it's now they're stars on other teams, and feels like the Steelers are kind of starting to do that same thing. Just to reference Rams players that former Steelers, Kevin Dotson, who's the highest rated guard this year, and then you have Ahkello Witherspoon. And it's just I don't know. Anyway, all that to say is I think the Rams defense creates opportunities for the Rams offense to score more. And honestly, the Steelers defense they're gonna get tired. It's what happens almost every single game. At some point, like they've been able to hold it together for a couple games. Obviously, they've won 3, but at the end of the day, like they can only like stop the offense and give it back to Pickett and Canada and Najee and just watch them go 3 and out. So I think the tired Steelers D gives up big plays to Cup and Nakua towards the end of the first half into the second half, and I think that this one is 31-15. Rams win this one, unfortunately.
Just a quick comment. Welcome to the club on your team sucking. Like you're talking to the 2 worst people in the world to say giving up on talent. When we got the Tigers and the Lions, that's like we haven't made the playoffs for the past like 6 years. But I'd go on another tangent how spoiled you are about that.
No, that's the thing is I am spoiled. To use Mike Tomlin's words, I am fat and sassy because of watching this team play growing up my entire life and going to 3 Super Bowls, winning 2. Like,
it'll humble you.
They have spoiled me as a franchise, and now it's their fault for sucking. They should
It'll humble you. Well,
should have fired Canada 2 years ago.
Taking that slice of the humble pie. Anyway,
and I suffer from the Tigers too. I like the Tigers.
Yeah, but they're not your top team. Having all of your top teams consistently not make the playoffs.
But I am a diehard Tigers fan. Like, trust me.
What team are you a diehard for then? If you're a diehard of the Cardinals, right?
Cardinals, Tigers, Pirates. I've consistently always said that those are my
yeah. But you always have that one team that you're favoring, which it seemed like it was the Cardinals.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, I get what you're saying, but then it's like in most circles, I'm probably a bigger Tigers fan than like your average Tigers fan still.
Well, Tigers fans are a bunch of frauds, but
oh, geez, Eli's taking on the Tigers fan base.
No, everybody's calling Torkelson a bust after 1 year. I'm sick of people getting all like impatient when you had an incompetent GM for years and Al Avila, like they had to reset again. So it's going to take time. I hate to say it, but at this point, I'll wait however long I have to. I've already had to wait 8 years for them to make the playoffs.
Oh yeah, but all our former players were all over the playoffs this year, right? So,
well, of course, that's what happens. I mean, even dating back to when Delman Young won an ALCS MVP, he was on the Tigers. So like, we might as well make this another segment next week. I feel like we struck gold.
Oh my gosh, talk about how they wasted Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, David Price,
even Doug Fister and Rick Porcello.
Rick Porcello. Oh
both
my gosh,
of them succeeded.
Yeah, it's. Ugh.
Yeah, Castellanos is raking right now, right? So yeah.
Oh yeah.
We might have to make a segment on the incompetence of the Tigers next week, but let's get back to our picks here. For the next game, we're back to an easy one. I think we got the Seahawks Cardinals. I think the Tankathon goes in full effect for the Cardinals. I think Jonathan Gannon was a good story for the first 3 weeks, keeping them competitive. But I think Geno Smith and the Seahawks will lay it up on the Cardinals. Big win here. I'm going 42-17.
Yeah, I totally agree. As the season goes on and the depth is getting exposed, teams like the Cardinals are just going to get killed. So I got 31-10. Seattle's off a bye week. They're at home. It's not even going to be close. 31-10.
Whenever you have a quarterback that's a high IQ, I think that can keep you competitive in games. And Josh Dobbs is, I believe, a rocket scientist. His degree was at Tennessee. I think this is the start of his MVP train, and they blow out the Seahawks. No, I'm just kidding. Seahawks win this one 28-17.
I was going to say, we're getting into some rocket scientist narrative here.
I'll always be grateful for Josh Dobbs and what he did for the Steelers, but yeah, sorry.
He's a baller for sure, no doubt. He is a baller, but yeah, a bad team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a blowout, but he's been a good story so far. Once Kyler comes back, maybe we'll see the Cardinals be a little more competitive. But the next 4 o'clock game, probably not.
They
I
need
like
Ja- they
the
need Ja- they need James Conner back is the guy they need
yeah.
back. Yeah.
He was
Stuff
he
with baseball.
they're running. Uh,
More
I mean,
Kyler rants.
he was going to the Athletics, so I don't blame him for not going to baseball. Wouldn't have paid him much.
You would have got paid
Um,
somewhere else. He'd
don't
probably be more
disagree.
productive than he is in football. He's gonna
I'll
be
give.
backup. He's gonna be like a fringe starter for a couple of years and just be a backup. Dude's overrated.
I
Yeah,
haven't
it'd be
given up on him yet.
easier to wear his belly shirts in football, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, moving on to another clunker of a game. The Packers Broncos. I think there's some duds this week, so there's a couple of games where I mean the Lions are playing at 1, so I won't really check out Red Zone, but there's some games where I'd have no interest in watching. This is one of them. I think the Packers Broncos. Um, I think the Packers offense is pretty. I think getting Aaron Jones back would be big, but I don't know if he's 100%. LaFleur wasn't big on him, like being 100%. He hasn't put up a full practice since week 1. So I actually go with the Broncos this week. Does my hatred towards the Packers feel this a little bit? Yes. If we're talking spoiled franchises, I think they're the most spoiled franchise. They've had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row. But I think Russell Wilson's been a lot better than people have given him credit for. He had a bad game last week. But I think the Broncos, I think Russ will pick apart the Packers defense a little bit. Their secondary is a little shaky. Other than Jair, I think Russell Douglas is going off his little 2-year hype train. So I like the Broncos. I think Jordan Love will struggle. I think Pat Surtain will get a pick. Oh,
uh,
and 24-17, by the way. My bad.
Pains me to say it, but I'm gonna take the Packers in this one. They're it is at Denver, but I think off a bye week. I believe when they went into the bye week, it was a precaution to sit out Aaron Jones. So I think he's going to come out on fire and kind of make the difference for them. Um, yeah, there might be some struggles in this game. Kind of another one that's kind of be tough to watch with Wilson giving the ball away, Jordan Love making really bad throws. But I think Green Bay comes out on top, unfortunately, 24-16.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a sloppy game regardless. I'm gonna go with Eli here. I think Broncos win this one. I think Russ cooks, and it's 28-24. Yeah, he's been better than I think what a lot of people have given him credit for. It. Broncos have still been underachieved a lot, and been a really crappy team, but yeah, Russell have a good game. Packers have been really unimpressive this year. I really like to me it doesn't really make much of a difference if they have Aaron Jones or not because it kind of felt like even when he was healthy, like they weren't fully committed to him anyway. Just seeing how many like having Dylan in one of my leagues and like seeing how many carries he gets a game and just how unproductive he is and the fact that they still feed him when they have Aaron Jones is like don't think that they're fully committed to him. I don't know. The Packers are just so mediocre this year, which I'm sure is a breath of fresh air for you guys. So yeah, Russ Cooks, 28-24 Broncos.
I love to hear that. I think we're moving on to. I'm going to proceed with caution. I'm going to say the best 4 o'clock game, but still not big on it. The Chiefs Chargers. I've lost all faith in the Chargers. Brandon Staley, if they lose this game, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the hottest of seats he's been. If they lose another game or 2 in a row, I think he's gone. He has to be. But I think Chiefs pretty easily here. I think the Chiefs will win it 28 to 24. The Chiefs always keep it close, but they always come out on top. Thanks to the refs sometimes, but always keep it close.
Yeah, you're exactly right on the Chiefs Chargers game. They're always a slugfest. There's always scoring. I think that actually the Chargers are going to pull this one out. Chiefs do have some trouble against Herbert. He's put up big numbers against them. that just the Kansas City offense is just really weird. And just that, I mean, I think Dak Prescott actually played out of his mind in the Cowboys Chargers game. The Cowboys gave the Chargers every opportunity to win that game with some really stupid mistakes on special teams and some different things. And so again, I think Herbert played well in that game, even with all the pressure with Micah Parsons. And I don't think Kansas City is going to put that same pressure other than Chris Jones, but somehow I think they're going to win this game 27-24 and keep Brandon Staley afloat.
Yeah, I view this game really similar to the Jets Eagles from last week. Chargers are a much better franchise right now than the Jets are, obviously, but both the Chargers and the Jets have kept games close. And then the Chiefs, like the Eagles, haven't been like the same juggernaut that they've been the last few years. One thing that the Chargers defense has done decently well is get after the quarterback. And that's something where when you can do that against Patrick Mahomes, he tends to struggle a little bit. I don't expect Mecole Hardman to play that much of a role in this game. I know that he knows the offense and stuff like that. I don't know. I want to see it for a game first before I'm like, all right, their offense is fixed. I think the Chargers somehow squeak this one out, and I think Eckler helps them eke out a crucial division game. I think having him back for the second game, being healthy, we saw week one when he was healthy when they played the Dolphins, how close that game was. Imagine if he had been healthy really this entire year. I think they have a few more wins, and we're probably actually not talking about Brandon Staley on the hot seat, unfortunately, because I'm with you, Eli. I don't think that he's the answer. I think they've been
Stinks.
plagued by mediocrity and like underachieving, but it's like just good enough to the point where they won't fire him. But I do think that they end up winning this one. It's a really close game, 36-33.
All right, then we go to our Sunday night game, the Eagles Dolphins, considered the game of the week by many. And this might be your shocker. I don't know if this will be close, to be honest. I think the Eagles will win this pretty easily, to be honest. The one time the Dolphins played an elite defense, bearing Jalen Carter coming back, being that game wrecker in the D line. The Dolphins struggled mightily against the Bills, especially in the second half, where they only scored one touchdown. So I'm going to give this to the Eagles 35-21. I think Tua will have some issues. I think Mostert will get bottled up. Hill will put up his usual. He'll make some impact, but I think the Dolphins, you'll see them struggle just like they did against the Bills.
I'm going to go Philly as well, but I don't completely agree there. I think Philly's defense has been really up and down. They've James Bradbury and Slay have really underperformed. Jalen Carter's had a really nice start. I think he was banged up and out last week. I believe they let the Patriots back in the game earlier in the year and gave up 20 plus points to them. I think Miami's going to score at will, and I think the Eagles are going to score at will. And I think it's just going to be one of those games that you're just whoever has the ball last is going to win. So I do agree with the Eagles pulling it out. I think ultimately Tua will get baited into a couple of mistakes, and I do agree with the take on slowing down that running game. But I think there's no way you're slowing down Waddle and Hill in the passing game. So I'm going to go Eagles 37-35.
Yeah, my note for this game is the Eagles are thin-ish. Again, I feel like they really need to prove something this year, and until they do, like against a team like the Dolphins, which I know that they didn't do as well against the Bills, but I mean, outside of that one game, like they've been just absolutely electric. I think that this is a big prove it game for them, and they end up winning this one pretty handily, 38-20 Dolphins.
And then the last game of the week, the Monday night game. You got the Vikings and the Niners. For me, didn't think much about this one. I think a big Niners bounce back. They had some injuries that played a part in their loss, and they almost won it. They had Jake Moody miss a 41-yard field goal. I believe that was the distance on it. So Purdy still put them in position to win at the end of that game and ended up missing. So I like the Niners in the easy bounce back game for them. I don't think Kirk Cousins looked pretty bad against a pretty bad Bears defense last week. So I think the Niners will give them too much to handle. And I'd have the Niners winning this 27-17.
That's crazy. I got the same score. The more you talk, though, I was thinking 17 might be a little heavy, but yeah, I don't see how the Vikings can even attempt to run the ball against the Niners. They're going to have to pass, and you know what happens when Kirk Cousins has to pass 50 times. I mean, it's just there'll be a lot of issues there. So 27-17. I'm not sure who's going to come back for the 49ers as far as Samuel, Trent Williams, McCaffrey. So that could keep the game a little bit closer. We saw what happened when those guys were out of the game. Purdy was very mediocre after that. To even give him credit, mediocre is probably a compliment, to be honest. So, yeah, I just 27-17 49ers.
Yeah, I have 49ers rebound game on Monday night. You like that? Kirk Cousins been letting me down in fantasy. So I'm not going to pick you because, yeah, I don't. Kirk Cousins really needs to show something. He's looked a little sloppy 2 out of the last 3 weeks. Yeah, and to your point, Eli, like the Bears defense had no business making him look sloppy even without Justin Jefferson. So he's really got to prove something here. I don't think he does against the 49ers. I have this one 38-13.
All right, we had some pretty big differences there. I think that could play out pretty interesting. Like I said, we'll get those records up at the start of the segment. I'm intrigued to see after this week who takes the lead on that. I definitely think there's some quite me picking the Broncos probably will bite me in the butt. But any final words from either of you guys?
I'd say go Lions forward on the field. I got you.
We heard
you. Go Lions.
We just knew.
We knew what you were gonna say. Yeah, I mean, go Lions, go Steelers, go Rangers, especially.
Yeah,
I'd say.
What's that score right now? I was kind of checking it here and there while we were recording.
Jose Abreu hit a 3-run shot to break the game open for the Astros.
That's 9-3. It's gonna be a tie game or tie series.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. We'll definitely talk about that next week. I think that'll the series will be developed. I don't think either of them will be over either. I think they both will be going on. But other than that, we're going to go 3 weeks in a row next week. We're going to go every week, at least in the NFL. Your consistency, you're getting it finally. We've been preaching it for about 4 years now. If you're waiting, you've received it. So I think that would conclude this episode of Speak Now. You guys have a wonderful football weekend. It should treat you guys well. And see you guys next week.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. Peace.
I don't know what you told, I'm gonna make you fall. Yeah, break the mold. How can you not be so? Yeah, putting the hours in, pushing the pen to the pen, putting that 10 to the 10, blowing out the 616. This is it. Yeah, get it again.